Okay, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this short webinar with some top tips on how to be an effective and confident virtual trainer. In this session, I'm going to be just sharing with you some of the key things that we do in our 5-hour virtual workshop program that supports people who want to do virtual training to take their skills from the classroom into a virtual world. So we're going to share some of those tips and hope that you enjoy them. So I'm going to begin with sharing my screen here. And we're going to start the slideshow from here, from the beginning. All right. So I'm Heather Bird. For those of you who don't know me, I've been running 3C for quite a long time. Prior to that, I actually started my career as a mathematician. I went and worked in the theatre for 5 years, as you do, and then I worked in industry for 15 years before coming into the learning and development industry, because in the end I wanted to deal more with people and less with mathematics. So I have been working in this industry for about 2 decades, and most of the time we focused on performance management. But as part of doing that, we did a lot of virtual development and training for people, so that particularly working with some NGOs and a few global organizations, so that we could train people all over the world. And initially we were only able to do that by phone. When we first started doing this, video conferencing technology was not suitable really for training. But gradually video conferencing technologies got better, and we developed a program for our own trainers to how to be able to deliver virtually. And then when COVID hit in March, we quickly adapted this to start making it available for many, many more trainers, learning professionals, everybody who needs to teach and engage people now in a virtual world where they might not have had to before. So what we're sharing with you has been built up over a long time, but we've actually been teaching. We probably taught this program 10 times in the last 3 months in order to help and support people going forward. These is a selection of the clients. This is the only advertising screen really you're going to see from us. But what pulls it together, the thing that most brings our clients together, is that we tend to work with organizations where people have been promoted into management roles because of their technical or their professional or their academic expertise, and not necessarily because of their managerial skills. So we do a great deal of work on helping organizations well managed. Can I ask you all to, in fact, what I'm going to do is silence everybody. Let me go back one. Just going to stop sharing for a moment. If we can put everybody on mute, that would be really helpful. So I'm just going to mute everyone, if I can. Participants. Can everybody put themselves on mute, please? I'm muting those that I can see. Otherwise, we get a slight distortion for everyone. Great. Let's go back to the screen share. So here's what I've got: some basic principles behind designing an engaging section, some practical techniques. We'll talk about how you can share and discuss documents, which works whether or not you are teaching the documents or whether it's a meeting. And we'll look at some example virtual exercises. And thank you for those of you who put some stuff up in chat around what it is that you would like to see covered. I hope that gives you a sense. I see that Jessica has immediately put up that she'd really like some solidarity with others grappling with the same challenge. Jessica, that's absolutely, I think that's what we all feel, isn't it? Just to feel we're not alone struggling with this, and we'd like to find some ways that we can be as effective as we can be in this virtual world. So here are some first key principles. If you have done the free program, How to Manage Online Calls, Online Meetings and Conference Calls, you will have come across this, these 3 rules. So the first is the 3-minute rule, which is not happening in this session because I'm not teaching. This is a webinar, a multiple webinar. But there is a thing that we call the 3-minute rule, which is absolutely about every 3 minutes, ask your learners or your participants or your delegates to do something, all right? And every 5 to 6 minutes, we ask to encourage you to invite in a new voice. So every we're going to ask people to do something. Can I ask you all to mute yourselves? I've got somebody not on mute at the moment. Every 3 minutes, ask your learners to do something, and every 5 to 6 minutes, get in a new voice. And then aim to structure your teaching into about 15-minute units. Now that's much, much smaller than you would have done in the classroom. If you're like me, I tend to go, right, we'll do this and this before Christmas, before the break, and we'll do this after the break, and I'll make sure we've got to that point by lunch, and we'll do this in the afternoon, and so on. And what you need in a virtual world is to be thinking down into much smaller units. I'm just going to stop sharing for a moment, as I've got some people who are not on mute. Right, just keep yourselves on mute if we can there. All right, let me come back to the share. So 15 to 20-minute units of learning. So do a single objective in your learning. So each unit do one thing and then sum up that one thing and move on to the next thing. So try to break your learning down into smaller units than you would have done. We recommend not more than 2 hours of virtual learning per learner per day. All right. So if you're doing 2 hours, you'll have needed a break in the middle of at least 10 minutes probably. So you're looking at a session of perhaps 2¼ hours, absolute max 2½ hours, right? If you try and do more than that of quite intense learning, you will find that people just are not taking it in, they're zoning out, and you would be much better splitting your sessions and doing them over multiple days. Now, I'm very aware that some of you are landed with, oh, I've got to spend the whole day with the team and we've got to go through, I don't know, the employee engagement survey. But if you've got some long chunks of time when you're kind of doing virtual work, I would strongly recommend breaking into smaller groups, maybe or maybe not using breakout rooms, but getting people away from the big group for lengths of time and then coming back together. But for your core teaching, maximum of 2 hours per learner per day. And for yourself, don't try and teach more than 4 hours per day. I occasionally teach 5 hours a day and it is completely shattering. So yesterday I taught 4 hours. I taught 4 groups of 10, one after another through the day. So I taught 40 people during that day in 4 groups of 10 in highly interactive sessions, people talking, sharing ideas and engaging. And it is exhausting to do it. So, that's a kind of general rule for setting your own challenges for yourself. So 2 hours per learner per day, 4 hours for yourself. All right, so some basic rules around timing and some basic rules around engagement. So one of the basic engagement techniques that we use is something called pose, pause, pounce. And we use the word pounce because it comes up to 3 Ps, but really we're talking about inviting people to speak. So again, if you have been on your on the free course that we ran, you will know that we talked about a call management grid where you list all the people in the call and you track who's contributing. And I can show you classically here. I use these for my training. So here's a sheet of a training session I ran recently. Here are the participants, not too many participants in this session. And then you can see that I'm writing down as I'm going along who's speaking and in what order I'm inviting them to speak, so that people are being invited to speak. So I might say, all right, what's the most important thing that we want to get out of today's session? I'll allow you a moment to reflect, and then I'm going to invite some of you to share with me what's the most important thing you want to get out of today. And then I will invite people to talk. So I might say, Jessica, would you like to share that with us? And then Jessica will unmute and she will start to talk. And then I'll say, thank you, Jessica. And I'll move on to Karen. Karen, would you like to share something with us? Now that technique works really, really well for groups of up to about 15, occasionally for groups up to about 20. So your normal, straightforward, classic developmental classroom size works really, really well for that. It's a great way of driving engagement. And some of the universities that we're working with at the moment are beginning to use those techniques even to engage some of their students. And we're working with the academics so they can think, how can they pick that technique up to encourage participation? if you've got a really big group, say you've got like, we've got 30, 40, 50, maybe sometimes you've got 100 people on your webinar, but you still want to get some engagement, then you use chat. So I'm going to use chat now. And first of all, a number of you were invited to share what was the tips that you most wanted. But I'd like now to ask, if you want, to just put in chat what you see as your personal biggest challenge moving from classroom to virtual world. So for some of you, that might be the size of class. For some of you, that might be needing to completely rethink your material. For some of you, it might be that you do such practical stuff. For example, we've been working with the NHS, and how do you teach somebody to give someone else?
Audio.
Can I ask people to keep themselves muted, please? Thank you. So do put on chat what are the key challenges. And there's a classic one come up: not being able to read the room. That is a really tough challenge, and in a big classroom, there are ways in which you can learn to do it by helping people contribute to what you're doing. But we can see in what's coming up here, the real challenges. So several people are putting up the body language challenge, and other people have also put up the technology challenge, dealing with the technology, managing it in different ways. So you're a big group and you're putting lots of stuff up. Suppose that I was teaching you, I don't know, some physics problem or something, and I might have asked you, which bit of this problem do you not understand? And then I could have gone through all the chat and we could have looked at what were the main issues coming out of the chat. I could have invited one of you to have looked through the chat and then shared back with me what you thought were the main issues. So we can do a number of different things to use chat to engage people. All right, so here's some examples of how I've simply got you, by contributing on chat, to share some of that. And I hope if you take the time, some of you, to look through some of those things, you'll see that you are not alone in the things that you're struggling with. All right, another technique that I like to use is called Pass the Leader. So what I can do, you can do this on chat or you can do this verbally. Because we're short of time today, I'm not going to fully demonstrate it, but I'll explain how it works. So I might say, so for example, Claire Wildman, one of the latest ones, has put up, she's concerned about the audience won't participate despite inviting them to comment and join. So what I might do is I might say, has anybody got some suggestions of how we could help the audience participate even when they maybe don't respond when we invite them? And then if we were in a classroom, I would then invite somebody to put their hand up and they might suggest some thoughts as to how that might work. And I'm not going to judge those thoughts or anything. I'm just going to let those thoughts be shared. And then I would ask that person to choose another challenge from all the list that's been on chat and invite someone else. So one of the other things that's coming up is how do we deal with technology issues? And I might ask that person if they might then ask that question, how can we deal with some of the technology challenges? And then use the rest of the room to get feedback and choose one person to answer and move on. So we pass the baton by getting the room to start beginning to answer the questions that each other raises. Now, as the trainer, you're sitting there making sure, yes, I think that will work, or no, I think that won't work. So you're slightly guiding some of the conversation. But what you can start to do is begin to make that work in different ways. And we could have done that on chat. I could have said, all right, let's pick up one particular question. Has anybody found a solution to engaging with people we can't see? What techniques have you used? And then we get a whole list of choices coming up. And then I might ask one person there to choose a chat question and ask another question of the whole group, so that we start to generate answers as well as generating comment. The other thing it does is give you a rest. So one of the challenges of the webinar approach is that I'm having to do all the outgoing stuff. You don't want to be doing that when you're training. So by getting the learners to do some work, then you give yourself a break. So we've done some stuff on chat here. We also do some stuff on reflection and allow time for reflection. So let's move on. So we're going to have look at two different design options. And if you join the main program, we have a crib sheet of 30 different ways in which you can deliver activities in a virtual world, but I'm going to look at 2 today. And the first is a provocation. So if I was teaching time management and I wanted to encourage a discussion about time management, I might have put these 3 choices up. Now, I didn't number them here, but I could have numbered them. Let's assume that I've numbered them 1, 2, and 3 in the obvious order. I can then invite people to share on chat which, if any of these statements, do they agree with, the first, the second, or the third, any mixture, or none. Shirley has asked if we're going to be sharing these slides. I did put up at the beginning, just coming out as a quick note. If you joined this directly, so you emailed us, we will have your email and we will share the slides. If you've joined us through a link shared by a friend or a colleague, and so you haven't directly contacted us, we don't have your email address, in which case, can you email me either privately or on the open email, your email address, and then we will make sure you get a copy of the slides. So just as a little example on this provocation, why don't you put in chat, any of you or all of you, whether you agree with the first, the second, or the third statement, and or none of them. So let's just see what people think about time management. Okay, so what we're getting here is lots of people who in the learning and development industry absolutely understand time management is mostly about making choices. But if you ran this in a time management class or in people thinking about time management, we would get very different answers. So the way in which that I would then do this is I would then invite one of you to say, that's interesting that you agree with 2. What is it about 1 and 3 that you don't agree with? Why do you want to not think that time management is just a version of list making because everybody says it's all about lists? And by then getting people to explore what's the difference between making lists and making choices, what we actually mean when we say waste of time, what we start to do is unpick and surface the problems that are underlying time management. Because as I'm sure many of you know, people come on time management courses usually because they've got a different problem. They can't delegate, they're always procrastinating, they don't know how to prioritize the different things that they should be doing, they're unable to say no to other people, whatever it is, whether it's a lack of assertiveness or a lack of clear thinking, it's usually another problem. It's not the time management problem that comes out. So we can use a provocation, a series of contrasting statements to start a conversation around what are the actual underlying issues here, not as a test of what's right and what's wrong. So in the main program, we'll explore a number of provocations and how you can use those in your learning. There's another way in which you could start perhaps looking at time management. And I use these time management examples because most of us in learning and development have had some connection with time management, either as a trainee or as a trainer. So it's quite helpful in this situation to use it. So one of the other ways is that you can invite people to actually verbalize what they would say in a certain situation that reflects time management problems. So in this example, what we've got here is we've set up a little scenario that says, your colleague has asked you to attend a meeting in an hour's time as it will help a project you're on, and you are incredibly busy. What are you going to say? And then what I would do is I would ask everyone in chat to actually write the words of what they would say if they were asked that question. Not to write some advice, but to write the words. And in writing the words, you get everyone in the room to actually have to think, how do I say no? Or if I'm going to say yes, how am I going to manage that in the context of me managing my time? And then I might invite people to verbalize those words. So we go from the NLP understanding of actually having to think through and write the words to then verbalizing some of the words and then moving on to verbalizing each other's words. So not saying what you would say, but reading out other people's ideas. So you don't have to take ownership of it. You're not going to be criticized, but you're still practicing saying the words. So 2 very simple ways in which we can get people thinking around how they manage time. The first one, I've used a provocation there to start exploring some of the issues around why people have time management problems. And in the second one, a very simple exercise to help people start taking back some control over their time from other people who might try and steal it. All right, let's move on. We're going to look at check-in understanding. This is a very simple one using a roll call. If you've done the free online program, you will have heard me talk more about roll calls and how we use them. But suppose that you've got to a point and you just want to go, does everybody understand that 2 + 2 = 4? All right. And what you then do is you go round the room and you go, Anne, do you agree that 2 + 2 = 4? Ben, do you agree that 2 + 2 = 4? Cara, do you agree that 2 + 2 = 4? And you ask each of them once a time to confirm that they understand. And somewhere you might get somebody going, and what that tells you is that that person hasn't fully understood what you've taught. So you need to listen and you have to verbalize it. And in going around the room and getting people to verbalize their agreement, then you can hear when something is not going well. The other thing that you can do is ask a question, which is, how many of you would like me to repeat that? So rather than say who doesn't understand, that's difficult because people have to admit they don't understand. But by saying, how many of you would like me to repeat that? If you've got a big group, you can just put a poll up. Maybe if you've got a small group like this, medium-sized group, you can just ask people to write yes or no. Or if you've got a group of 10 and you've all got the cameras on, just ask them to put their hands up and you can see on your screen. So ways of checking understanding: use a roll call, seek confirmation, or ask who wants something to be repeated. Okay, moving on, and we're going very fast here as different things are happening. So this is about discussing documents, whether this is learning or whether this is in a meeting. So some key things that you need to decide before the session is who is going to summarize the content of the document, right? And what do you want? What are the learning points that you want? And then who is going to summarize the learning points? There are 3 things there. There's what is it we need to know? There's what do you want to come out of what we need to know, and there's who's going to clarify the key learning points. And depending on what you're teaching and your subject, this is going to be different. So it might be you sent out some pre-reading, and then you're going to ask people to come in and invite them to say, what did you make of point 1? What did you make of point 2? It might be, if you're working with a group over time, that you set something and you say, at the next session, we're going to be looking at this process, and I'd like, Ben to be doing this and Karen to be doing that, and so on around the room, and so that people know they've got to come back and report to you. Or it might be that you're sharing the document and then you would want to use listen, playback, confirm. So again, if you've been on the free course and you've seen that, and we'll do that again, that you talk and then you invite every 4 to 5 minutes, you invite someone to go, Wendy, I've been talking for 4 or 5 minutes. Would you just like to summarize back to me what you've heard? That gives you a rest, and it also helps you understand just what is landing and what isn't landing. And it also keeps all your learners on their toes because you don't know. They don't know who's going to be asked. If you've got some very new learners, new students, new starters, you might want to warn them. So I might then be going, Andy, at the end of this next 5 minutes, I'm going to be asking you to summarize back to me what you think you've understood, so that then you've pre-warned people. The only challenge with doing that is that you've then told your other students that they don't have to listen because Andy's going to do the listening. So I would recommend that you don't say who you're going to invite to do the listening, but you can if you want. All right. So if you found some of this interesting, and I hope that you have, we teach a full course, which is 5 hours of live teaching, plus lots and lots of online material, about 10 hours, another 5 hours of online support material. There's lots of there's 3 big toolkits coming down around structuring, around designing, and around managing participants. And there are 5 hours, and it's running very differently to how we've run it before. It's running an hour a day. for 5 days in that first week in August. Because after that, Helen and I need a holiday and we won't be teaching this live again until the autumn. So there are 5 places, and I think some of you who booked are already some of those 5 places. Some of you who are on here today, there is a maximum of 15 in the class, so I can get you all talking to me and sharing and learning from the group as much as you can. So if you've enjoyed what you've found here, you are what I've said to you today, and you found it useful, do go and have a look at that program. And if you would like to join us, then either come back and discuss it further with us, or you can just go and sign up directly online. So I'm going to stop the share now at that point, and instead I'm going to invite anyone who's got any questions at this moment to put them into chat. As we've got a couple more minutes left, I will try and answer any questions that come up. Helen has reminded you, if we haven't already got your email address, please do email us so we can send you the slides, or else we won't get them. If you book direct, we've got your email. How much is the summer bootcamp course? The summer bootcamp course works out at £247 a person, and it is an absolute bargain at that. It's 5 hours of learning. All the learning is recorded as a webinar. There's another 5 hours of online learning, and then it's all available to you for 6 months. You can go back and reflect on everything and have another think and join in. And the cohorts that we've done so far, I think we're on about our 10th cohort. We do some cohorts publicly and some cohorts in-house, where organisations have got lots of people. In-house, obviously, we'll negotiate you a single in-house rate rather than you sign up as individuals. So hope that you enjoy that. If you found this useful, there is more. I absolutely encourage you to go and do the free online program, which tells you lots around how to engage people. And lots around how to manage your learners, as well as how to manage people in an online event. So I do want to emphasize, if you come to the event, to the learning, you will only be in a group of 15 max, and we will have the cameras on, and we will do lots and lots and lots of interactive stuff, and you will get the chance to bring any of your particular learning challenges to the group. We've had people running child support agencies, we've had people from the NHS, we've had lawyers, we've had accountants. How much do you need to pare back your expectations about what you can cover in a time slot? Yes, that's a very good question. In general, it goes fast. So I find I can do more in an hour virtually than I can do in an hour in a classroom. So it goes faster, but I have to be very focused about what I'm teaching. So one of the things that I show is that you can normally do your 15-minute, your round the room introductions in less than a minute per person. Whereas if you do that in a classroom, it takes longer than that. Have we got a link for the free online learning? We will put the link for the free online learning in the emails when we send out the slides. So absolutely available to do that. Some more questions coming up, I can see. Nice little taster, people put in. Yes, co-pilots. If you, especially when you're initially delivering, I absolutely recommend having a support, and Helen usually comes and supports me. You don't need to co-train, though it's quite fun to co-train, but you don't need to co-train, but it does really help to have someone in the background who's watching chat and also able to give you feedback and send you notes, like Helen sends me, saying you're talking too much, invite someone to talk, which she does. Oh, Helen's also pointed out that at the end of her sign off there is a free email link to everything. Any more questions coming back up? Okay, I think I've covered a lot of what's come down here. Glad that you've enjoyed that. I'll happily stay on the line another 5 or 10 minutes, but if I've finished the main content of the course that I wanted to do. So those of you who are thinking it's lunchtime, by all means, run off. But if anyone would like to stay for a few minutes and put questions in, I will. I'm going to stop the recording now.